What is up, folks? Welcome to the latest episode of the Harold McBasketball Show, impromptu podcast. We've had a lot going on today. I'm your gracious host, as always, Harold McBasketball, along with my co-host, I Know Ball, Paul. Paul, how are you doing? Thank you for joining me last minute.
I'm doing great. We just filmed the conclusion to our Siakam trade because we decided last minute we'd make that into two separate videos. And then we filmed the introduction to the trade machine video. And now we're here to give a quick little reaction video to the news that dropped today, which included Terry Rosier, as Harry predicted, being traded to the Miami Heat for, I believe, a 2017 first round pick and Kyle Lowry, the 38-year-old veteran. And also some kind of out of the blue news, Adrian Griffin, head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, getting fired. And now it seems people are coming out of the woodworks and being like, yeah, nobody really liked him. But yeah, kind of a shocking story there because the Bucks were our contenders, looked pretty good, and yeah, which story do you want to start with, Harry?
I don't know. It's tough. Both are pretty
There's
major. Do you have preference? They both came so suddenly too. It was like really like woke up and the Rozier deal was done. It was like an early morning deal. And then this Adrian Griffin one really only came in a couple hours ago. So maybe we just go in chronological order. Dare we start with Rozier?
sure, yeah. Again, predicted, honestly, kind of
I
shocking.
will I will s- I will say I did like predict it, but it's not like I synthesized it out of nothing. It's like there were definitely rumors going around that Terry Rozier was potentially going to be traded. And I think there were at least rumors that like he had mentioned that he would be interested in going to the Heat. So there was like a very small breadcrumb trail that I followed to come to my trade idea. But I literally like nailed it perfectly. Like Rozier for Lowry plus a pick. Like that was it. Like that was what I'd offered. That's exactly what it was. So pretty cool. Obviously, I think it's a good trade because it's literally what I came up with. I think it's fair. I think it's a good idea for the Hornets to rebuild a little bit, get some assets, and then Terry on the Heat is awesome. I think he's such a good fit for that team.
Yeah, yesterday I think I was like, I think the Hornets would say no. I think Terry is making 25. He's got the 2 years plus a team option. I thought it was such a favorable contract. I think the Hornets were more in a position to try to land a big free agent or get a big guy through a trade. I didn't think they would go in this rebuilding direction, but obviously their head was more in the space that you predicted. Um, my immediate reaction is a little bit similar to my immediate reaction with Siakam, which I ended up kind of um, I don't know. I just feel like Terry um, is an incredible player and won 2027 first round pick for a guy on such a favorable contract. I don't get it for the Hornets, to be honest. But
It is one of those things where, like, objectively speaking, it's like with the Miami Heat 2027 first round pick, it's like best case scenario is you would get somebody almost as good as Terry Rozier, and like probably not. Like probably who you pick with that is gonna be like it'll probably be like the 20th pick, 22nd, something like that. Probably not going to get anyone go with it. Maybe a role player as kind of best case scenario. So you're not really recouping the value of Terry Rozier with this move. Um, on paper, I honestly thought they could have gotten more. When I had initially pitched the trade idea, I thought Terry Rozier was on a shorter contract, but with still like 2.5 years left, it's like there's a lot of value with that. He's really cheap. He's really good. Like he's having like a near all-star season this year, I think. Like I don't know if y'all have seen the graphic of like Damian Lillard's stats next to Terry Rozier's stats this year, but they're essentially identical. Rozier's just more efficient. So he's having an absolutely incredible season. I thought he was probably worth at least like two first round picks. Maybe you could argue three because he's been so good and he's on such a bargain contract. Kind of weird to say that like maybe he'd be the same value as Siakam in a trade, but Siakam's expiring and is going to have to get a max, whereas Rozier is this absolute deal, and he's also like a near all-star player. So I don't know. I do think the Hornets probably could have gotten a little bit more, but I think the I think the minor plus that we don't initially see is that Brandon Miller's been like really good the last couple of weeks. And I think they're also just like looking for a way to get Brandon Miller more minutes to get him to start develop with the young core they have in place with like LaMelo, Miles Bridges, I guess. And then I'm blanking on the name, but their big man who's injured right now.
Yeah, Mark.
So yeah. So I think Mark Williams. So I think that's kind of like an underlying reason why they make the move because it's not only do they get assets back for Rozier, but it really allows Brandon Miller to take on a bigger role, and you kind of see what you have with him because he does seem to be super promising.
Yeah, yeah, no, he's had a nice stretch, especially the past 3 games. He's been scoring 20 plus points in each of them. And yeah, I mean, he looks fantastic, and I suppose you're right because of how ball dominant Terry is, and it doesn't really fit the timeline. But again, yeah, just considering his contract, I think considering how well he meshes with LaMelo, I think if I'm the Hornets, I probably wouldn't have taken that trade. But on the Heat side of things, like I said yesterday, Terry, I think, is going to be is such a perfect fit in Miami with the culture of the team, the culture of the city. Those guys are tough, but they've got that swag, and Terry's just, um, and being on the Hornets, of course, his stats were a bit better than if he was on a lot of other teams, but I stand by the fact that Terry's an excellent player that can contribute like meaningfully on a good team. Like he's going to be awesome for them. He's not going to put up the same stats, but Terry's going to be fucking awesome. Like yeah, I love Terry.
Yeah, it's such a home run for the Heat to move essentially from Kyle Lowry as starting point guard, who was like I always make the joke that the Jones brothers are probably like the worst starting point guards in the league. I don't know how Kyle Lowry ended up finding the starting role for the Heat. I guess they just literally had nobody. He
Yeah.
was like by far the worst starting point guard in the league. So they're going from Kyle Lowry, who was giving them nothing. I think I mentioned the other day he was averaging like 2 points per game, 3 assists, 4 rebounds, like something insane. Like he was just giving them nothing. They're going from that to Terry Rozier, who's averaging like 23 points per game, 7 assists, 4 rebounds, a steal. Like he's just an incredible player, and he's such a good fit for them because not only is he a very capable on-ball scorer, but he's super efficient from three. He shoots like 38% on like 8 attempts per game. He's a super high volume 3-point shooter. So like him and Hero on the floor together is going to be awesome. The Heat have always been a nightmare in the playoffs because of their 3-point shooting. So Terry Rozier is going to help that out so much,
For
and
sure.
definitely like covers up the loss of like guys like Gabe Vincent or Struess. Like he's so much better than both those guys.
Yeah, huge loss with Gabe Vincent there, who's
Dude, he sucks. We both knew he sucked anyway. I think everyone knew that he sucked. He was kind of just like a Heat system guy, but yeah, huge win for the Heat. Like one of like the biggest home run deals I can remember over the last few years.
yeah, funny how they just like were totally lacking a point guard, which is definitely one of those positions that there's an abundance of great players at. Um, and Tyler Hero is a capable ball handler, but you definitely I think he's better playing a bit more off ball, and you don't want him
Yeah,
all those touches.
yeah. The on off numbers have always been like a little questionable with Heroes somehow. And I think it's because he kind of had to take on that bigger role at the point guard position. And like the defense wasn't great with him. But now you get Terry at point guard, who is like also a sneaky decent defender. Like he gets some steals, he's athletic, he buys in. That's all you can ask for from your point guard. So yeah, he's gonna be an awesome fit there. Like it's gonna be magical. Like the Heat are a problem again. I don't know if this catapults them like right into like the top tier of like Sixers, Celtics, Bucks, but I think they're like right beneath that now. It definitely like gets them into like the same tier as the Cavs, probably a step above.
Yeah, looking at their roster, they have some decent role players, but obviously if that core stays healthy between Bam, Jimmy, Hero, and now Terry, um, yeah, I think they're very sneaky contenders. Yeah, it's tough to put them in that top tier, but honestly, with how they always perform in the playoffs, I think I'd be willing to kind of put them in that tier or as close as you can get to it because yeah, playoff Jimmy. We saw how good that he was last year without Hero, and if Hero can stay healthy and Terry, their offense will click, and they're a great defensive team. So
Yeah, they are. As a Celtics fan, they worry me now. Like before, I'd been like, I think the last few seasons were kind of flukes. They lost some guys. They're getting a little bit older. Not worried about them this year, but the move to add Terry makes them a lot better. I think, they've always been a team that can beat anybody in the playoffs. So, even more so now with Terry on this team. And then obviously he's like a bit of a Celtics legend as well. We know what he can do. We've seen what he can do. I feel like not a lot of people have been watching Hornets basketball. So I think some of it's kind of been lost over the last few years, but he is super talented.
yeah,
So huge, huge upgrade.
yeah. Terry is so much fun to watch. He's like he's big, strong, but his speed is obviously what makes him stand out. But he's
Great
like
handle too.
he looks small, but then you see he's like shredded out of his mind and just like stupid athletic.
Yeah, I think he's like sneaky tall too. I feel like he's like 6'4". No, he's 6'1". That was a lie. Okay.
Yeah, he's short, but he plays a lot bigger and stronger than he.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel he's got a pretty big wingspan. Super athletic, super fast, tries super hard. He's an incredible player. I can't believe there weren't more teams interested, willing to kind of up the bidding for Rozier.
I want to see if I can find this. I have this. It's this is probably horrible podcast content, but he had this fit I saw in League Fits. Oh, I found it. Terry has the sickest style ever. Look at this, guys. Can we see that? The drip is crazy. Oh no, I can't hear you, Harry. You
Oh,
mute.
sorry, I was drinking my seltzer. Yeah, it's a
Great
sick
podcast.
fit. Yeah, great podcasting. Yeah, you can tell this is a very impromptu podcast.
Yeah. Fuck, he's got this like absolute drip. It's like a wool kind of rugby shirt, some pink pants,
The rugby shirt is so awesome.
and his hat. It's like kind of like that Russian like winter. Anyway, yeah, this is kind of off the rails.
Yeah, the tunnel in Miami is going to be electric. Like him and like Hero sometimes puts together some really trash fits, but he tries hard. Like sometimes they hit. So I think him and Terry in the tunnel are going to look awesome.
Yeah. Terry's just got crazy confidence. That's what it is. He's got, swagger really is like the word to describe him. He is his own man, and he's just, I was always a huge fan of Terry Rozier. So big dump for the Heat. I see what you're saying with the Hornets needing to rebuild a little bit and focus more on their young core. It'll be interesting to see if they re-sign Miles Bridges if they move forward with him. He's, I think, probably 24. Um, but yeah, ultimately A plus Heat and the Hornets. Um, I would have kept Terry, but hey, if 2027 first round pick could turn into something decent, and Kyle will be off the books, I think, next year. So
Yeah, yeah, and that'll give them some cap space to play around with. So if I was gonna do grades, I would say like A+ for Heat, obviously, total home run. Give the Hornets like a B. Like expiring is good. Brandon Miller getting minutes is good. The first round pick is decent. Feel like they could have got a little bit more, but still decent. So I'll give them a B. That was a good move. They picked a direction, which is nice. I'm intrigued to see what they'll do now at the deadline because feels like they still need to make moves. Like they still have Hayward who's just like on their roster, probably needs to be traded. I'm sure there's a team that would take him as an expiring / someone who potentially could provide some value. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe even ends up being a buyout guy, but I don't know. I'd like to see them at least try to trade him at the deadline.
yes, Bridges a free agent next year. Is he like up for
Bridges is a free agent next year, which I think is also probably why they thought it was important to move Rozier, get Lowry, open up cap space, because that way they can essentially match anybody who gives Bridges an offer. Because maybe that's like a hidden trade off that we don't know about, or maybe
right?
I
That's
can't
what
imagine. I can't imagine they're that close to the cap. Like I feel like they had the space, but maybe they were in a position to where they had to open up cap space to be able to re-sign Bridges. So they're like, we'd rather keep around the younger player than keep Terry here.
I might be mistaken, but I think LaMelo signed a huge extension that starts next year as well.
That would
He's
make
gonna be
sense.
making crazy money, so maybe it is kind of a salary cap decision.
Yeah, but also they've Hayward coming off the books next year, and I feel like Hayward coming off the books alone would like
Yeah, he makes
open
30.
up enough to keep Bridges. Yeah,
He makes 30, which is crazy.
yeah,
Yeah, but
they
they
paid
want
him.
to they want to match what the Pistons are going to offer Bridges. The Pistons are desperate to get that.
Bridges is like seriously gonna get a max contract this offseason, which is absolutely insane. But like both teams are so desperate for talent that they're just gonna do it.
Yeah, it. I don't know. I don't think the case is like totally closed with some of the stuff that.
I believe they're revisiting it in February, so it is possible that he just gets fucked, and he probably should get fucked. I think that's probably ideal.
Yeah, the allegations against him are pretty heinous. So I do wish him the
Yeah,
luck.
and yeah, and he was like a repeat offender too, to where it's like he had like another incident over the summer, which is like why he's going to court again over it. So I don't know. It's not good. He's a piece of shit. But
Anyway, do you want to give our quick thoughts on this Adrian Griffin firing? Which I don't even know if I have too much to say. It's so bizarre, and I didn't.
it's so weird.
I guess people didn't vibe with him. I guess, which when a team is as stacked as the Bucks, I think it could be easy to look good and play well, but behind the scenes, if there's some turmoil, then might not.
Yeah, and I know some people are kind of under the impression that the Bucks have been a little bit worse than their record is. Like they've kind of like barely gotten by in a couple of games where it's like they really should have lost against bad teams. They kind of barely got the win. So their record could be worse. And if they were closer to like the fifth seed, then like maybe this makes a lot more sense. Still super weird though to see a team that's 30-13 fire their head coach, who's also a brand new head coach. Like they just hired him this offseason after getting rid of Bud.
Yeah,
So it's crazy. Like the guy's only been around for maybe like 6 months, and they're like, yeah, we've seen enough. Like we're getting you out of here. Like, and the record is good, so it kind of tells me that it probably has a little bit less to do about actual basketball on the court, and maybe just about like how people felt about him. Um, but like it might also be like a mix of things because I know there's also quotes that like Damian Lillard didn't really like the offense he was running and couldn't really. I don't know. He felt like he couldn't really be himself in the offense, so this is all kind of like speculation, but the speculation is that the GM was like, all right, we put so much money and assets into Damian Lillard. We need to make sure that we get a return on that. And if this coach can't maximize Damian Lillard, we need to find somebody else who can.
yeah, and I mean 30-13 is an incredible record, but it does feel like they haven't been as dominant as you might have hoped. I think they even had a close call with the Pistons a few nights ago.
Yeah, and this is a team that can run itself essentially. Like with like Giannis and Lillard, it's like they're gonna get wins regardless. So you need to make sure you've got a head coach that is really maximizing the talent and isn't just wallpaper.
And they're saying Doc Rivers is a candidate, which please just I
So
don't.
bad, dude.
In a way, like sure, like as a Celtics fan, not that I hate Doc Rivers, I just kind of have this perception of him as like not a great coach for whatever reason. I mean, the Clippers and the Sixers definitely, he has some crazy stat where he's lost so many um, game sevens or kind of
Yeah, whenever they're like up in series, they tend to blow it.
yeah, and he has a bit of a reputation. I mean, his voice is just like a bit
Well, I mean,
annoying,
saying that though, like the silver lining is that if Doc
right?
Rivers gets a job coaching again, then we don't need to listen to him in the NBA Finals, which would be huge. So for
Right.
that reason alone, I fully support this hire.
It's crazy. Yeah, Doc Rivers, he has coached some of the best teams on paper like ever. And minus that Celtics championship team, like he's never really gotten it done, but he just has like some sort of grip on GMs across the league. But
Yeah, because I think he's like this really good players coach, where all the guys who play for him really like him. People just really like him. He
yeah,
knows ball, but I think he's just like not like an awesome like X's and O's guy. So I think it's like very possible for other coaches who are a little better at scheming to kind of like out scheme him or make better adjustments than him throughout a series, which is why you see him give up some of these leads in these series because the other teams will like make changes to their offense or their lineups to get an edge on Doc. He's probably a little bit too slow to actually, you know, figure that out and then make changes himself. So it's like, although everybody loves him, it's like I'm not convinced that he's like this top tier coach, which if you're the Bucks, like that's what you're looking for. They should rehire Bud. They should bring back Bud.
Budenholzer
He was
was
a good coach.
um, yeah, and throughout his career, he's always come up a bit short. I mean, he has the championship as well,
Got a
obviously.
ring. They fired him 1 year after the finals. And like I get it, like they got absolutely embarrassed by the Heat, but I don't know. I would have been willing to. I think I said it back then too. I was like, I'd be willing to give him another year just because this Bucks team has been so good, and cohesiveness is so important. It's like there's never a guarantee that when you let one coach go, that you're gonna find an even better one. And it's like really the odds are like you're gonna find a worse coach. So if you've got someone who's like pretty good, you're usually better off just keeping him. And like now the Bucks just find themselves in this coaching carousel where they bring on Adrian Griffin. 6 months in, they don't like him. They fire him, and it's like, now what are you going to do? You're essentially throwing away this season.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this squad can coach itself. Essentially, there's so much talent that whoever comes in has a good chance of still contending. But yeah, no, that's it's it rocks the boat a bit, and now they're gonna have to yeah they have to find a solution quick, and it's no telling if it's gonna work out.
Yeah, and when they lose in the playoffs, it's going to be the whole like, oh well, it was really hard to get back into the season after firing a coach in the middle of it. Like, there's gonna be all that talk. It's gonna be a little bit like when got fired from the Celtics, and that happened like the offseason. But even still, like the players were like, well, we got a new fucking coach in the middle of the season. It's like that was really hard. And the Bucks will say that too because it just is like completely changing your scheme and your head coach halfway through the season.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine the dynamic is just um, that must be like an interesting thing in the NBA with just coaches earning players respects, and like I'm sure a lot of players feel that they know more or understand more about the game sometimes than their coaches, especially if it's a newer guy or a younger guy, and coaches have to earn their respect and prove that they're valuable and worthy of being listened to because yeah, guys are super smart, and I imagine Giannis and Lillard, um like you said, may have just been like, what is this guy doing, like what is he thinking?
Yeah, I think the BS meter was through the roof with him. Like I think just a week ago I saw something on Twitter where like Giannis got pissed off at him and just like drew up the play during the timeout because he was essentially like, you don't know ball. Like you don't know how to drop a play for us to score right now. I do, I'll do it. That's a bad sign. Like if your coach isn't capable of scheming up plays that your own players have confidence in, then he's not really doing a good job. And there were some other red flags too. Like I think from the start, his relationship with Lillard was fucked. Because if you remember during the offseason, they also hired Terry Stotts, who was head coach of the Trailblazers for I think 9 years with Damian Lillard. So they hire him to help Adrian Griffin, who's this like young first time coach, also help Coach Lillard set up the offense with him. And like 4 months into it, like him and Adrian Griffin getting this like huge argument during practice. They clearly didn't like each other. Stotts resigns, or he might have been like under the table fired, chose to resign. Not sure about that, but I think from there, like literally was like, fuck this guy. Like I love Stotts. Like we brought him in to coach with me, and you fucked up this relationship. This guy who has been a head coach for all 3 months. And yeah, I just think I don't know. I think his ego is a little too big from the jump.
Yeah, I forgot about that little story, and the details are a bit blurry, but I think it was something where Terry tried to like that's his name, Terry Scott
Terry Stotts.
Stotts.
Yeah.
I know the face, but yeah, that's a weird name. But I think he like tried to call some like player huddle, and Adrian Griffin like totally power played him and is like, no, like
Yeah, like
over
he
here.
fucking like yeah, he fucking like beta cucked him in front of like the entire gym. And he's like, I'm like a veteran coach of like 10 years. Like, let me coach. Because essentially what it was is like Stotts was in like the player huddle, like they're breaking up practice, getting ready to have like the players do their post practice shoot around. And then Adrian Griffin is like, all right, like players go shoot, coaches stay here. We do a coaches only huddle. Stotts walks off with the players and he's like drawing up plays for Lillard and Giannis to practice. And like Adrian Griffin's like, get over here, Stotts. Like we need you in like the coaches huddle. He's like, can you just give me a minute to, tell the players what to do? And like Adrian Griffin just like fucking goes off on him like an absolute dick. And apparently there's getting like a huge screaming fight. Stotts retires or resigns 2 days later or something like that, and that was it. But yeah, apparently like the vibes are like really bad with Griffin from the start.
Yeah, I might need to do like kind of a deep dive and figure out Adrian Griffin. Maybe go back see some interviews because I'm a bit oblivious to what he's about. And what was his resume before the Bucks? He was where else did he coach? Do we know?
I don't know because I know he's a former player,
Gotcha. Yeah,
but
that's
I'm sure he was coaching somewhere else before. It looks like it was. Let's see. Why is it so hard to find? Coaching record. Okay. It looks like he coached in Chicago for a while, and then Toronto for a couple of years, and then Milwaukee. But obviously, always as an assistant coach until he got the head coaching job with Milwaukee. And apparently, the Bucks also really wanted to hire Nick Nurse this offseason, and Giannis was like, "No, I hate Nick Nurse. I don't want him to be the coach." So apparently, they hired Adrian Griffin, like more so as like what the quote was. It was like it's not like they chose Adrian Griffin. They just chose someone who wasn't Nick Nurse. That's what the quote was.
why does Giannis hate Nick Nurse just because the rap?
I have no idea. Yeah, maybe because I assume the Raptors steamrolled them during their run to the finals.
Yeah, Giannis. I mean, we don't need to get into like a whole rant, but like the whole like game ball situation made him kind of look like a bit of a dick.
Yeah, and like very like petty too. It's like I feel like I don't know.
And there was like
I don't know how
another
to
thing.
describe it.
Yeah, Giannis. I don't know.
He's,
He's
he's
charismatic, but sometimes he does come off a bit.
yeah, like I feel like he's a bully on the court, but he's a bit of a baby off the court, is how I'd put it.
Yeah, yeah. There's also a video of him like shoving, or I don't know. There was a guy who was like trying to do something with a ladder, and I think he was trying to shoot around, and he just like shoves the ladder, which
Yeah, very entitled. He's very entitled.
yeah, that guy's just doing his job. But
Yeah.
well, I still think Giannis seems like a decent guy, all in all. But yeah, maybe the vibes aren't so good in Milwaukee, and best believe I love all the Thananis memes and slander,
Oh yeah.
and there definitely just seems to be a weird vibe up there in Milwaukee. So it'll be interesting to see how things pan out. Um, Also, kind of an interesting the Damian Lillard game winner, and people were looking at Brooke Lopez, who seemed like to be calling for the ball and then like immediately disappointed. In my mind, I was like, no, it's it didn't seem believable. I mean, from what I saw, it looked like Brooke Lopez. He didn't celebrate clearly with Lillard, but I was like, oh, maybe he was like so amazed, and you couldn't really see his face that he just like walked away in disbelief, but like happy disbelief. But um, I don't know. Maybe that was a thing too. Like he was calling for the ball, and he did not
Yeah.
celebrate after the fact.
Yeah, I don't know. But I feel like Brooke is a good guy and a good teammate. So
And like,
I wouldn't read into that too much unless we saw more out of it. And like those moments are always kind of tense. So it's like if you think you've got a chance to win it, you don't get the ball. Like naturally these players are sometimes upset because they want the chance to win it. But even if he was upset, I'm sure he was over in like a minute or two.
right? Because in no world, obviously, would you rather Lopez take a deep three than Damian Lillard? So,
Yeah, and he knows that. He knows like that's Dame time. Like that's why you traded for Damian Lillard is so Damian Lillard can take that shot. And I think the whole team definitely knows that.
but yeah, I am praying on Milwaukee's downfall
Yes, love to see it.
with the humiliation against the Heat last year. I think they're um maybe they're not desperate, but the coaching change, the embarrassing loss. There's a lot of factors that are affecting this team, and it'll be interesting to see who they hire, and it'll be interesting to see come playoffs because they'll still coast no matter what, to a top three seed. But we'll have to see what they're made of. But
Yeah, yeah. This is gonna be a big coaching hire for them, obviously, and we do need to. It's gonna be cool to see how this team develops now, because like obviously new coach. Let's see how that does for Lillard. Let's see how Chris Middleton progresses throughout the season, and yeah, we'll see how they are in the playoffs. It looks like they're set up pretty nicely to get the 2 seed. Potentially three. The Sixers could snipe it, but as of now, if they got one of those seeds, they'd be set up to either play the Heat or the Pacers, which are both matchups I don't love for them. Like I think the Bucks would be the favorites, obviously, but I think that would be a matchup that people would be very willing to choose the underdog to come out on top. Especially if it was the Heat. If we got Heat Bucks again in the first round, that would be awesome.
yeah, and like you said, Terry, better stats than Lillard, more efficient.
Yeah, and they got him for one first round pick. That's it.
Well, that's the reaction to both the trade sending Terry to the Heat and the very bizarre firing news that came today of Adrian Griffin. We've only got a couple minutes left, so I say we wrap it up. Um, Thanks again for tuning into the Harold McBasketball Show. If you are tuned in at this moment, we appreciate you. Hit the like, the subscribe, whatever. Call to action, call to action. Anything you'd like to say, Harry, to our lovely fans out there?
Yeah, thank you all for tuning in, of course. And stay tuned too, because we'll probably be doing a lot of these impromptu videos now that we're getting close to the NBA trade deadline. I think it's February 8th. So I think for the next 2 weeks we'll probably start to see some trades happening very quickly, especially as we get closer to the deadline. So stay tuned. Definitely gonna be a lot more cool topics to discuss. Hopefully we get a couple more big trades in the near future, but we'll see.
Yeah, peace and love. Thank you guys.